Lead Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lead Different podcast, sponsored by Why Not Leadership. I want to introduce you to our guest today, Mr. Gould, who is a worldwide leading authority on business and entrepreneurship. He's a keynote speaker and a best-selling author. His company, 7 Stage Advisors, helps organizations grow to the next level. He is an entrepreneur who built 3 multi-million-dollar businesses by the age of 40, which was like last year. 7 Stage Advisors has mentored the launch of over 5,000 businesses. Some of the companies he's helped are companies like Allstate, American Idol, USA Olympic Track, IBM, McGraw-Hill, and the United States Army. So thank you for your service to my branch of the military, Carl. Carl has trained over 7,000 coaches in 35 countries, advised many of the fastest growing companies, won Entrepreneur of the Year, co-authored Blueprint for Success with 2 of his idols, Ken Blanchard and Stephen Covey, spoke at Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within seminars for 3 different years, wrote 9 books, and has run 2 New York City marathons. So welcome to the show, Carl. How are you doing today?
Hey, Dan, I'm great. Good to be on.
It's great to have you, man. I'm so glad we ran into each other at LX Council's meeting down in St. Pete, Florida in November. We've had a few conversations since then, and I've just learned so much just listening to you. And then as I was reading your resume today and your introduction, because there's so much that you've done, I'm really glad to have you on. I know that our listeners are going to get a lot of value out of hearing from you today. So welcome to the show, and let's get started.
Sure. Why not?
Why not, right? Thank you so much. So Carl, one of the things I like to do is go over our guest YOS, right? I do that with every client I work with. And you're someone that comes to us with the why of better way, a how of challenge, and a what of contribute. So for those of you that haven't listened before, we just like to set the stage. This is everything we do at Why Not Leadership starts with the YOS assessment. And so we're going to start every interview that way. So Carl, your why is to find a better way and share it with others. And what we know about people with the why of better way is that they love to innovate, take things that exist and make them better. The gift that people with the why of better way have is when they find a better way to do something, they share it with others. So that's a great trait. That's the way you contribute to the world. Find better ways to do things and share them with others. Your how is to challenge the status quo. So how you find better ways to do things is by challenging the way things are done. And it makes sense, right? You can't find a better way to do it unless you challenge the way it's being done. So you challenge the way things are done. You ask the question, hey, why do we have to do it that way? What's really cool about that combination, at least from the people that I've worked with, is you find better ways. So while you're challenging the status quo, you don't always run with every idea. It's only the ones that can be better. And those are the ones you tend to implement. And then your what is contribute, which is what I like to call one of the noble whys. You love to make a difference. What people can count on you is that you're going to make a difference, make a positive impact in the lives of others. So as I'm introducing you, how does that resonate for you, Carl?
It's when you explain it that way, it makes perfect sense, because I'll tell you what, I was tell you a story. So here I was, it was 2004, and I'm at Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within seminar, and I'm sitting on the production stand in the back, and that's where all the magic happens with Tony. All of the production, the AV, video, the whole bit, music. And Tony says from the stage, "We're a coaching company." And I turned to his master trainer and I said, "I don't think we're a coaching company at all. I think we're a training company." And she says to me, No, Tony believes we're a coaching company." "I don't think so. I think we're a seminar company." I said, "I'll prove it." So I wrote a section of his seminar that is still use today, and it's the coaching breakout session. So I write this session, and they said, well, Tony thinks it'll cannibalize his Mastery University sales. I'm like, well, it shouldn't, because if you're a coaching company and I'm writing another coaching module, they'll reject it because they already have coaching. But if you think it's going to cannibalize that, then we're a seminar company, Anyway, so we had a little bit of fun with it. I wrote this segment, and I started speaking at the Unleash the Power Within seminars in 2005, 6, and 7. And it was very, very successful. As a matter of fact, they still run that breakout session to this day within the seminar now. And it's a larger part of it. And what came out of it was a whole new way that they sell coaching. And so, yeah, that was my contribution to a better way and challenging the status quo all in one.
So where did that start for you, Carl? I love asking this question because when we're a better way person, when I talk to people with the why of better way, there's usually a time, that they first notice, hey, yeah, and they say, you know what, I've been doing that since middle school, since elementary. Can you remember the first time you said, hey, there's got to be a better way of doing this? And then you suggested it, you challenged the way it was being done. That's a great example, because I love that applies to business. But take us back to maybe a time, whether it's elementary, middle school, or even in your family, when, you told Dad, hey, Dad, why do we have to do it that way? Do you
Right.
recall that?
I do. The first time I really recall it was, I remember I was on a baseball team, and I was 13 years old. I was just in the new league. And I remember my coach coming to me one day and saying, hey, I've got to do the lineup. And he says to me, what do you think? And at first I didn't think much of it. And I said, well, let's put this person in here. This person has to get a minimum of 2 innings. And we strategized the lineup. And not only did he use that lineup, that game, he had me set the lineup for every other game going forward. And I remember saying to one of my friends, I'm like, who sets the lineup on your team? What do you mean? The coach does, of course. And they said, well, why? Why are you asking? I'm like, because I'm setting the lineup on my team. They said, you're kidding me. You're a 13-year-old in the 13, 14, 15. I wasn't even the oldest kid on the team. And I was doing the lineup. And that's when somebody said to me, well, maybe the coach, believes in you, or sees something in you, or has confidence in you, or likes what he sees. And so I said, wow, that's pretty cool. And so that was the first kind of evidence that I really saw that, and so yeah, that was the first time that I really saw that,
And how did you guys do, Carl? I think that's important, because we know the outcome of you challenging at the Tony Robbins event. That led to creation of a course that's still being taught. It's still a breakout session at those events. Tell us about your baseball seasons.
Well, if I recall, we went to the championship. I don't think we won, but we went to the championship that year. So that was my first year in that league. And there we are in the championship. So yeah, I think we're very successful.
That is really cool. And that's important, because I know that it's really cool that your coach recognized that, right? I think you probably, and this is one of the things we talk about when we debrief people on their results. Somebody like Carl, if you were playing for a coach that said, Carl, yeah, if you have an idea that's a better way to do it, but it challenges the status quo, and you go to the coach with that idea, and the coach kind of just blows you off, that's not a fun place. Or just say, hey, Carl, just do what I tell you to do, right? Your job is to play.
Yeah.
How would that have gone over with you?
I wouldn't have liked that. No doubt about it. I would not have liked that at all. And so it was. I thought it was really cool that he again believed in me, and really gave me the opportunity to take a leadership role. Really,
And what about professionally, Carl? I mean, I'm sure in your professional career, what I know is I thrive. I share the how of challenge with you. So I thrive in places where I'm told, hey, just get the job done. I don't care how you do it. And I'm not giving any guidance. I can be creative, do it my own way. I found that those are the places I did the best. how about professionally for you? You've always been an entrepreneur. So are your favorite clients, the ones that come to you and say, hey, here's the result we want. What do you think we should do? Or do you like it when they come to you with a formula?
No, I think, it's interesting. Clients come to me looking for a better way. In other words, they come to me and they say, we need to stand out. We lost our competitive edge, or, with the pandemic, we're noticing that our customers are responding totally different, and we need to find what the next way to operate is. And so they're asking for the better way. The very nature of what I do is the better way. And so it plays right into my strengths.
Love that. And so it's interesting you say that, Carl, because when I coach someone on their YOS results, now I'm talking to someone who's been around assessments for a long time, who's been very successful, and we'll talk more about that. But imagine I'm talking to someone who's not done a lot of self-assessment work, and they have your why of better way. And I start talking about the fact that, hey, by the way, your ideal client is someone who's looking for a better way. So I even create a sentence that says, your ideal client is someone who is looking for someone to help them find a better way. Because if they're looking for a better way and they hire you, then they're going to really enjoy working with you. Your ideal client is also someone who's looking for someone to help them challenge the status quo. And your ideal client is also someone who's looking for someone who is going to contribute to their success. And so we build all that, but it's interesting that without you having this knowledge, and of course you've been around assessments a long time, just the nature of your messaging says, hey, if you're looking for a better way, hire Carl, right?
Right on. Yep, exactly.
And if somebody comes to you and says, hey, we're looking for a better way to do it, your eyes probably light up, and you know that that's a client that you're going to have some fun with, because they're going to come and give you what they have and say, hey, how can we make it better? Let's go have some fun, because that's what Carl does really well. I like to call it the zone of genius, when you're finding better ways by challenging the status quo and contributing to the success of others. We're in Carl's zone of genius. He's going to put out some great stuff, and you've put out some really good stuff, Carl. So tell me about, this is something we talked about in the pre-show. So you were one of the DISC guys. Everybody who's listening to the show, a lot of coaches are listening. DISC has been around forever, and even though Carl just turned 40 recently, we're going to ask him about that time when he was 10 years old in the 80s and in the early 90s, when you were doing the DISC assessment by hand. Tell us about that, because this is great history.
Yeah, so in the very beginning, when these assessments were done on paper, and people would have to plot out their answers and draw lines in between them, and even though I was, the DISC assessments became computerized in the 80s. When I first started in the 90s, yes, you had access to software, but not everyone had software, and not everyone had access to computers and all that. So even though they were computerized, people were still doing them on paper. That was the predominant way that these were done. So I still have the box, because I didn't use them all, with all of these forms to fill out. And it actually had the grading scale on it. So when somebody filled in that button, you had to take it, and it actually gave you the algorithm, and you would add up and you would subtract and you'd multiply, and it would give you the graph. It was wild, for its time, especially when you think about it now, when you click buttons and behind the scenes, the algorithm is running. But it was pretty interesting times, back then.
And how accurate was it? Was it still just as accurate as it is today? I know that I guess there could be math. You're talking about tabulating the results yourself. So I guess the practitioner could make a math error and possibly make somebody that's a DI and ID or something like that.
You could, but it was pretty straightforward. I mean, anybody can really manipulate an exam if they want to. I mean, I can just reverse all my answers, and you can say, well, who is this clown? All right. But for the most part, people take the assessment in very good spirit. They believe in it. They're doing it for the right reasons. And so, yeah, it's really, we have found that whether you're doing, paper or electronic, people still felt that, it was a reasonably accurate assessment,
And that's such a different world from today, Carl. So, I spent the last 4 years at Y Institute, and we're growing the Y discovery and using it with leaders. And I remember being frustrated when one or two of the people would have issues with their computer and they couldn't get into the discovery and couldn't plug in. You're talking, like you said, the disk got computerized, but not everybody had access to it. So where today 1 out of 100 people is having trouble accessing it, you're talking a lot of people where it was probably a lot easier to just, hey, fill out this form and I'll go home and tabulate it and we'll get to the results later, right?
Pretty much that's the way it went. Or we would do them in person or over the phone. So I might mail the form to somebody and they would fill it out while I had my same copy. So yeah, it was, it's funny. It was just, when you look back at it and you realize, wow, that's how they did it. Like, yeah, that's how you did it. That was it, so it was interesting times for sure. And we didn't know any better,
Well, and it's funny. I was having a conversation with someone earlier in the week, Carl, all the stuff on the Jetsons, I remember all the stuff on the Jetsons that's come true. You and I are doing a video call right now, just like on the Jetsons, the stuff that we said, ooh, in the future, we'll be able to do that. I think everything except for the flying cars has come true. Can you think of something on the Jetsons that we're not doing yet?
I don't think so. And look, the cars were not far behind, because if you look at the, the flying cars, they're just drones. I mean,
Right.
That's a drone is going to be that, so
Absolutely.
So it's interesting, I think the Jetsons, we're very, very close to the world, according to George and Jane Jetson.
Well, so Carl, tell me about one other part, and this is really, I know people will want to hear about this. I mean, by the age of 40, you had built 3 multi-million-dollar companies. So how do you do that at such a young age? What was it that drove you? Is it the better way? Is it always looking for a better way to do things? How is it that you were able to get that done at such a young age, when a lot of us are starting our entrepreneurial careers at that age? You were already a veteran.
I got into entrepreneurship really by accident. I mean, literally, I got it. I had an injury, and I broke my leg while I was at college, and I had to leave school. And when I got home, I didn't, it really took me a while to rehabilitate, and I really needed the money. And so the quickest way that I could pay my bills, pay my student loans and everything, was to start a business. I was going to go back and work for the landscaping contracting firm that I worked with prior. But I realized that the year before, he had sent me out on all the proposals. And then when when I would win the proposals, which I was doing pretty frequently, then he would come back to me and say, okay, great, go do the job. And I realized, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Other than getting the lead, what do I need this guy for? I'm doing all the work. I'm doing the proposal. I'm presenting the proposal. I'm winning the proposal. What part of the job is left? And so I got into it by accident, literally. But then I started to get a taste for it. In other words, I was being successful at it. I was starting to make some money and paying my bills back. I felt like I had a purpose and a mission in life, and I hadn't had that in a while, because I was going to school for accounting and finance, and I just barely got in financially because I'm in a large family, had a lot of student aid and a lot of financial aid, and took out a whole bunch of loans, got some grants, but that all dried up. When you leave school for a semester, it all dries up. So I'm like, man, I got to figure out a way, let alone a better way. And so, yeah, I thought, but by being an entrepreneur, I was getting the results that I was hoping to get by having a job. So I stuck with it, and I just continued down that path,
I love that explanation. And now you use that experience that you had, because you built 3 companies yourself, and you've helped over 50,000 businesses launch. Tell me, what is something that people get? If somebody hires Carl, now that you've done all this, if somebody is working with Carl Gould in your company, what is it that they're going to get at 7 Stage Advisors? What's different? What's better? What is it that, you've got all this experience, but what is it, the I don't know, what is the unique selling proposition that you would say, hey, this is what you're going to get when you work with me?
Yeah, so since we are all entrepreneurs and managers, we've worked with and managed the kind of business that you want to run, and so what really has really helped us because we've been where you go. As a matter of fact, our internal expression is that we were you before we became us. And that's to us is very meaningful, because we're never going to ask you to do something that you haven't done already, and or that we haven't done on our own. And so we're partially a guide and we're partially a coach. And the other thing we do is we assign 4 subject matter experts to every client. So in other words, when you are working with us, you almost get a bolt-on C-suite wherever you go. And so that's really important to us, because again, we want to be part of the solution, not necessarily part of the problem, or just tell you a whole bunch of things that you already know, but we just told you a different way. That's not our thing. We want to help you out. So you're really getting, like Big Four consulting and coaching for a small business price.
Yeah, that is so important, especially as you're working with budding businesses, right? So you're you're not just getting Carl, you're getting a team. I love the idea of a bolt-on C-suite that can help you make those decisions that are very challenging for somebody who's just starting out. You bring in that experience and you have all that going on. So yeah, tell me some of the companies these are some impressive companies. I've got to ask you about this one, just because I'm a track and cross country coach I'm a high level track and cross country coach for a middle school, Carl, so I've been coaching. I've coached my oldest daughter, and now I'm coaching my youngest daughter. You worked with USA Track and Field. Tell me about that work. What kind of work did you do with them?
Well, members of the women's Olympic sprint team came to a Tony Robbins seminar, and I was assigned to them as their coach and trainer. And I worked with them. I was their coach from the neck up, not the neck down. But I did work with members of the Olympic track team, and they went on to do great things. And I was very proud to be able to help them and be able to watch them on TV and say, I know exactly what they're thinking right now, because we just worked on that. So that was really fun. It was a really fun assignment. They were terrific, tremendously coachable. They were everything that you would hope they would be. They were superstars, really were.
It's amazing to work with that high level and talk about a great convergence there, Carl, because one of the things that we hear in the coaching industry, especially as I work with coaches, we talk about the fact that Olympic level, high caliber athletes need coaches. So what makes you think that you as a business owner wouldn't benefit from getting some coaching? And that's really a convergence of, these were actually high-level Olympic athletes that had a coach, and they needed coaches from the neck up. So they'd done all the physical stuff. They had all the physical gifts. Somebody was taking care that they could run at their fastest, at their peak, and they're peaking at the right moment. But you got to work with them on the mental side of it,
Correct.
And get them ready for that part of it. And you mentioned it. You knew what they were thinking. You knew what the work that you'd put in together to get them ready for those high level events at the Olympic level, which is pretty cool. The other client that I saw that you worked with that I really, as I said, as you can see from the picture behind me, I spent a few years in the military. What kind of work did you do with the U.S. Army, my branch of the military?
Well, I've worked with various people within within multiple branches of the service, but worked with a number of leaders that were involved in Operation Freedom, and our work in Iraq and Afghanistan over the years. And I was very honored. They awarded me with a flyover. I got a flag that was part of in one of the F-16s that did a flyover on one of their missions. So it was, again, more leadership. There's the mechanics of success and there's the mindset of success, and I've been asked to assist in the mindset.
What was the thing that was most for you what did you notice in the military? What was different about working with those people than working with high-level executives and high-level Olympic athletes? What was if you could point one thing that's different? I know, Simon Sinek talks about their dedication to duty. What did you see?
Well, there are a number of things. One is they are very goal-driven. They are while they will honor the process and they will work through the process, they are very goal-minded. In other words, they know how to get the job done. Whatever it is, the end result has to happen no matter what. You need to make sure that you see whatever the mission is, whatever the task is, through to the end. There is no other option. You have to see it through. And so they all pride themselves on the same thing. And they are creative problem solvers, right? So you hear in the military that people take orders, right? But at the same time, the Army will say to you that you train your people, right? Obviously, you train them, you give them drills so they know how to do what to do. But once you tell them the mission, they have the how. So in other words, you coach them they're very, very coachable, because they are not, once they're given their mission, they're not then told how to do it. They say, here is your mission. Here are your mission parameters. Here are our outcomes. Here are the people involved. Here's the equipment involved. Here is the support system you have around you. Go get it. Right?
Yes, Carl, you just hit on something that's so very important, because, as someone with the how of challenge, like yourself, who likes to challenge the status quo, contribute, challenge, makes sense. Your better way, challenge, contribute. One of the things that people always ask me is, how did you survive in the military? Because how did you, with the how of challenge of doing things differently? And I will tell you, that's one of the things I remember. I remember having commanders that would say, hey, here's the mission. Go get it done, right? And you have to be prepared. It reminds me also of one of my favorite Mike Tyson quotes: everybody has a plan till they get punched in the nose, right?
Yeah, right on. Because you can only plan so much. And planning is incredibly important, because what it does is it allows you to think of the scenarios and say, what if? What if this doesn't happen? What if this happens? And it gives you avenues to travel down. But then once you're in the middle of it, you need to be able to improvise. You need to be able to overcome whatever challenges is sent your way. And the world needs creative problem solvers, period. In every walk of life, in every walk of business, in every sport, you need creative problem solvers, because you can only do so much. You can only do so much, and you can only be guided so much, and you can only read so much about what it is that you are trying to attempt. And at some point, you have to get out there and do it. And it can only be planned out and legislated to a certain point. Then after that, it requires you to take initiative, while you are out in the field or in the middle of whatever challenge you're facing.
And I love that you bring the other thing up is every communication is so important. I know that the entire Desert Storm was done with 3x5 cards. Everybody had 3x5 cards, and if the top leader went down, the next person could take over, because they understood what the mission was and what was next. And if that person went down, the next person went over, and that communication was so important. So thank you for helping our leaders in the United States Army be better, Carl. I really appreciate you sharing your experience and your perspective on them. Let's go to the meat of the show. One of the questions I have to ask every episode is, tell us about your biggest why not moment, Carl. And maybe we've already heard a little bit about it, but a time in your life that an opportunity presented itself, change a career, whether it was something that you decided and you said, you know what, why not do it? and you're so glad you did?
Yeah, so it's when I became a coach. I decided to start my coaching, and I didn't realize I was starting a career, but I was starting my, if there was such a thing of a side hustle, this would have been my side hustle at the time, and so what I did was in 1990, I started to pursue coaching as a side hustle. People asked me about it. They said, "You want to get involved in this?" I said, "Why not?" And then in 1996, after working with a business coach for my business, I said, "I want to do this." And I started to really focus in on how this would be a bigger and better part of my career. And so the why not moment for me was I decided to do a business that just simply didn't exist at the time. No one knew about it. No one heard about it. I just, and when I told people that I was, getting out of my construction company so I can do this business that, no one had ever heard about, to do a job no one even knew about in an industry that didn't exist, everyone thought I was crazy. But I knew it felt right. I knew it was the right thing for me.
Wow. And it's turned out extremely well for you. Nowadays, I think you can say, "Hey, I'm a coach," and people don't assume you're a sports coach. I'm sure you heard that a lot, right, Carl? What sport do you coach?
That's exactly what people asked me. When I said, "Oh, I'm going to go into coaching," they're like, "Wow, great. What sport?" Because at the time I coached basketball with a buddy of mine. We co-managed a couple of basketball teams. And so people assumed I was going to pursue becoming a professional basketball coach.
That's fantastic, Carl. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. What do you say we end the show on that note?
Why not?
That's it. Thank you so much, Carl. This has been such a pleasure. Half an hour goes by fast when we have fantastic guests like you. Thank you for being on. Thank you for sharing your experience, your wisdom with all of us here at Why Not Leadership and everybody in our audience. Remember, tune in every week. Hear more about how we find coaches and leaders who like to lead differently.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different because great leaders change the world.